are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her, and it's scary, sadistic stuff.
He has footage of this shit, bro. The car got there and stayed there since late July. The tour started early August. Nobody came in or outside of that crib since the car got there. She was dead in the car. There's no footage of anybody going and transporting the body into the car. It just so happened that the video shows that the girl body was in the Tesla right before he went on tour.
So there's a few clips from this interview that are pretty interesting that I'm going to play to you, and he seems to hint, basically, this is the private investigator who'd been hired by the landlord.
Private investigator!
Investigator that's been tweeting a lot about everything that's been going on. And he's basically going to explain some of the exclusive evidence that he's got that might give him an inkling about what was really going on with that car and the body.
To be honest with you, we don't have any evidence that anything happened to Celeste at that house, but there is definitely evidence that we've collected that helps the timeline. We now have a much better understanding of when that Tesla arrived at that final parking spot. I'll tell you, I do have surveillance from different houses in the neighborhood showing Tesla being moved. So things like that, and I'm not even saying that LAPD didn't have that. I'm sure they did, but we wanted to make sure, and and we did some work and on the up-resing the footage to find out who was driving the vehicle. And there are some other items that were found at the house that weren't taken during the search warrant. And search warrants are limited, right? They can't just go take
I don't want to
and
hear that shit.
I
don't want to hear that shit. See, I got two problems with this whole. I got a few problems on Fulton Gray. Do your homework. We finna list them out one by one. Oh shit! The first problem is this nigga has still not been arrested. Okay? I have never in the history of niggerdom have I ever seen a nigga with a 13-year-old girl's body found in his car and he don't even get arrested? Come on, bro. Whoa. Bruh. What we talking about right now? That's the first problem. Problem number two. You sit here talking about some, yeah, they can't. Bro, they found a little girl's body chopped up in the back of a Tesla in front of his house. And the Tesla was registered to him.
Stop it. Get some help.
On top of all of that shit, we got so much evidence and videos and pictures of this grown man sleeping around getting freaky with this little girl. Bruh. Still no arrest. Now y'all see they trying to scoop this shit up under the rug, folks. They trying to scoop it under the rug, and I'm not having that shit, folks. So for everybody watching, buckle up, sit down, buckle your seatbelts. You feel me? Get you some Thoink, roll it up and grab a leaf. That's the best thing ever since sliced bread. If you gonna smoke, make sure you smoking out of this, okay? And enjoy the video. Hopefully they got some good evidence.
We haven't seen it, and that's what we like to see. But there were some things that were not taken into custody of LAPD that we think are significant, and including digital media and some other things that really help nail down timeline and things like that.
So he is saying that there were things that the police didn't take, or perhaps that the police couldn't take, that they did take, that on behalf of the homeowner, they have taken and they think are actually relevant. They actually could be interesting, and then they could contribute to understanding what went on behind the scenes.
And you handed that over to LAPD. There's other.
We have literally the day that we, the things that we've recovered, we've given to LAPD within 24 hours.
Do you know who was driving that car, that Tesla? You don't have to tell me, but do you know the identity?
Yeah, as far as going to the final, what we believe is the final parking spot where it was towed from, yes.
He says he knows. He knows who was driving that Tesla to the front.
So he knows who the last person to drive that car
parking spot. He says, we know. Okay, and this is going to be major. Now, he doesn't end up saying who it is, but basically he says, we know who was driving that car when it was moved, and this is going to be major.
And that information's been communicated to law enforcement.
So it's been given to law enforcement. They're not going to tell us if they're confirming if that's a person or not. Robbery, homicide, the way they work is we'll take your information. We're not going to speak on it, so I don't know. But listen, it's very clear that that neighborhood is filled with surveillance cameras.
Hell yeah.
The timelines, once we learn those dates and we can see other things that were happening that were even public on Instagram and whatnot, were going on in those people's lives, it makes a lot of sense.
So he's saying that there's other properties with surveillance cameras that are capturing the footage of who's coming and going in that house around the neighborhood beyond the surveillance cameras that were actually...
Well, no shit. This is why I'm trying to figure out. And okay, if the crazy freak weirdo man didn't do it, cool. But somebody did, okay? I seen some shit on TikTok like a few days ago. They talking about some, oh well, the autopsy is about to come out, and they think that the cause of death is a drug overdose. So the drugs cut her body up and put her in a Tesla trunk too. I'm just saying, bro, they got trackers on these cars. They got trackers on her phone. They got trackers on David's phone. They got surveillance footage, bro. Like, you're not about to tell me that you can't track everywhere this car went days before the body was found and potentially find a crime scene. They don't even know where the little girl got her body chopped up at, bro. They don't know shit. They don't know nothing. The private investigator know more than the police.
taken from the home.
Come on, bro.
Okay, that is pretty major. And so he's about to talk about how the body
This don't sound weird.
wound up in the car in that particular position, and he's going to give some more interesting insights.
So let me ask you this. If you see when the car was parked there, have you seen anything to indicate that Celeste's body was transferred into that car after the car was parked there? Or in other words, do you believe that her body was in that car when minute
they got there,
it was parked in the location it was ultimately towed from?
So I'll say I have no evidence of a body being transferred before or after. There's no evidence of that at all. What I will say, when it was moved to that position, it was already like that. So that car had not been used in a very long time. It was super dirty, caked on dirt. I'll tell you, this was in late July. So it's bizarre because we also got media that the car was used a lot. David even spoke about it in Instagram videos. He took it to a detail shop and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, the very beginning of the year, that car, something happens, and that car's doesn't show up anymore. It's not used. It seems to disappear. And then that red Tesla learned, which we didn't know until the search warrant was served, that there's a red Tesla in the garage, which I can tell you was leased on February 1st.
Very, very interesting. He says he usually had his cars detailed. He usually had his Tesla pretty clean. And then for some reason at the start of the year, he stopped driving that car.
Right.
Okay. And it ends up getting moved to that position potentially in July. But he got a lease on another Tesla, a red Tesla that we haven't seen, that he's been driving since February. Why would he want to stop driving that particular car? Who knows? Could the car have already had something crazy go down in it? Was he planning to leave the body in the car? Was the car already containing a body and he couldn't drive it around? It's very interesting. Okay, it's actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, let me just narrow down here. Do you have the precise date of when that car, the one with the Tesla, with Celeste's body inside, when it was left there? Do you know the specific date of when it was left in the Hollywood Hills?
I believe so. I believe it. Late July. Very late July.
So one thing that we've heard, and this is something we've talked about, is the LAPD is seized
footage. When did they found her body in September though, right? See, they also haven't came out and said when she was last known to be alive, like the last time she was seen on camera, or you know what I'm saying? So, but they did say that the body was severely decomposed. They found the body in September, early September. So I think he just said late July. So it's very possible that the girl's body could have been in there for a month and a half before somebody found it. You know what I'm saying? Because it take a long time. Remember, they towed the car from that location because it had been there for so long and it got tickets. You see what I'm saying? So they end up towing the car because they labeled it as like abandoned. It take a while for, your car got to be in a spot it ain't supposed to be at for a little minute before they just tow it,
Property, multiple security cameras around the property. There are even reports of a smashed Ring camera on the ground. Yeah. And according to TMZ, police seized all the footage from multiple security cameras at the house last month when they executed the search warrant. TMZ described that footage as a, quote, potential gold mine for investigators. And the question becomes, did you see anyone coming into or leaving that property after the Tesla was there. So after the Tesla with Celeste's body inside is there, can you tell us you saw people coming in and out of that property before the, let's say this, before the search warrant?
No, not from the time that the Tesla was left. So from the time the Tesla was left there, he literally immediately started the tour. There was a
How did we get here, bro? So miraculously, at the same time that Tesla was right there, he started a tour. This telling me all I need to know, bro. Y'all can go back and watch all the videos I done did on the David situation, folks. You know what I'm saying? And I've been saying it makes sense for him to have, for her to have died in that Tesla, been sitting there since the beginning of his tour. His tour started in late July, right early August. So the car got there. He has footage of this shit, bro. The car got there and stayed there since late July. The tour started early August. Nobody came in or outside of that crib since the car got there. She was dead in the car. There's no footage of anybody going and transporting the body into the car. So just so happened that the video shows that the girl body was in the Tesla right before he went on tour. And then just so happens he went on tour right after that, and they found the body in September.
Timing's interesting, right? He's saying from the time the Tesla was left there, he
What we
immediately
talking about,
went on tour. The dirty Tesla that hadn't been driven in months was dumped at that spot, and then he fled, got out there, went straight on tour. Now that's very interesting too, right?
Tour bus that was leased, and I'll tell you that Tesla was moved, and literally a bus departed for tour.
Okay. You talked about things that might have been taken from the house, things that you handed over to LAPD. Is there anything you can share with us about what that information may be?
You know, one thing that you just brought up, and I guess what TMZ reported on, the security system. The house has got a very sophisticated security system, not just with cameras, but with sensors and all types of things. It all records to a DVR. And for privacy reasons, the owner, when he leased the house, said, you know, this is the system that's in the house, and you can use whatever functions you want on it. That's not something that then the owner could access. So we don't know if the cameras were enabled or not enabled, but if they were, it wouldn't just be cameras. It would be, we'd know anytime anybody came and went from the house, anytime anybody opened a window, everything.
You ever had one of them days where everything seems to go wrong? I mean, you're just trying to grab a cup of coffee and BAM! You're tangled in a pile of boxes because the shelf is broken. And just like that, I realized sometimes accidents at work are more than just funny stories. They can actually change everything. Trying to handle a workplace injury on your own, it's like trying to fix the broken shelf yourself. More chaos, more headaches, and there's no guarantee that you'll get what you deserve. You got paperwork, insurance calls, and someone always telling you to wait. It's enough to make you wish you had a secret weapon. But here's the thing, there's a team of people that fights for people just like you. For over 35 years, Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, has been winning cases when everybody else said it couldn't be done. In Florida, someone got $12 million after a work accident, even though the insurance was ready to offer just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a worker was awarded $26 million, which was 40 times the initial offer. These are not just numbers. They're real victories for real people, all thanks to the team that fights hard for justice. More than 1,000 attorneys across all 50 states, like a legal squad ready to jump into action. Yeah. They've recovered over $25 billion for clients. And they have a long history of helping workers get what they're owed. Because when you're injured at work, you shouldn't have to go at it alone. You can just click the link below or the QR code that's on your screen. No endless waits or confusing forms. Just a quick way to start protecting your rights today. So if you had an accident on the job, do not risk doing it alone. You can check out Morgan & Morgan, because even in the toughest workplace accidents, a strong team makes all the difference. And trust me, there's a reason why they're America's largest injury law firm. It's because they fight for the people just like you.
if they kept it like it was, but we don't know. LAPD came in and took that whole DVR. They took the entire system, which you would expect. And I've talked to the security company that installed the system, and they've told me, you know, how it was set up. We think it was probably running because there's limited alerts that the security guy can see, which is stuff like if there's a major failure. And there was a low power failure warning that triggered right when they were executing the search warrant. And I think that's when they unplugged the system. So there's reason to believe that the system was running. Whether the cameras were covered or not, I don't know. I can tell you that some of the smoke sensors in the house were covered, and that's probably because maybe they were, I don't know what they were doing in the house. So the cameras might have been covered as well.
Yeah.
So he's making it clear that apparently he's got absolute confirmation that the security system was working. It had a low power alert when they executed the search warrant. So that means that there's no way that the system wasn't working. Now, whether or not David manipulated the system, covered up cameras, but it sounds like the system was on. He's not saying, cameras were all off. He deactivated the system. There's not. No, it sounds like there indeed is information. And when they described it as a potential goldmine for information, apparently that was true. So he's about to say something extremely interesting, right? Where he basically says, look, we recovered a lot of stuff, but we don't really have much evidence of Celeste at that property. All right. We have a couple pictures of her taken by David, but we don't know what type of phone that it was taken on. And essentially he goes on to say that likely she had another place that she was staying nearby, and David had her parked off out the way and not at that property. So,
you know, what we recovered, we don't have any of her at that property. We have pictures of her and that were taken by David, we assume, because it's not on a camera phone, but these photos are on a regular camera at different locations. And it really makes me think that it's likely she had another place she was staying. I can tell you that there was a lot of time spent towards downtown LA.
So they're saying, he's inferring that they spent a lot of time at another place towards or in downtown LA where potentially Celeste had her own place. She might have had her own place to stay.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you something in a minute that backs that theory up.
Okay.
I'll say the last photo that we have of Celeste is January 2nd, 2025.
Right.
Okay, now that's significant because we were wondering when, you know, she was last seen alive. There was that surveillance footage of her seemingly running away from her neighborhood.
And that was September of 24, I believe. So we didn't have anything. We were like, where was this girl in 2025? But we do have a photo of her on July 2nd, early in the morning, July 2nd, 2025.
Okay, so they have a photo of her early in the morning, July 2nd. He goes on tour. That the Tesla gets there end of July. He goes on tour beginning of August. So somewhere between July 2nd and the last week of July, this girl died.
Saying that there is a photo of her that was taken on the morning of July the 2nd, 2025, and she was still alive in July 2025, which again contributes to that theory that she maybe lost her life towards the end of July or early August, right before that tour started, okay? So that's what's really information. Now, he doesn't say that he has any more information about when she passed away, but he does say some more interesting stuff later on. So he's about to touch on the potential overdose theory, and he's basically going to say that he can't really put too much faith in that theory anymore.
I also think when I first started looking at this case, I'm very much a Occam's razor type of person where I think things are a lot easier than people try to make them sometimes, especially online, into these big things. And I thought this was going to be a tragic overdose, which it very well still could be. And they made a bad decision because they didn't want to expose a potential relationship and put her in this Tesla. And then maybe he thought he could get somebody to get rid of that car. And they were just like, no, I'm not doing it, and just got left there. But I will say this, there are some things that, and I'm talking physical evidence that was at that house that is, there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her, and it's scary, sadistic stuff. And that's.
So he is saying that there.
Bro, I'm not surprised, bro. We all these videos, one thing we can for sure all agree on is that this nigga David is a weirdo. He said there was strong physical evidence that there was bigger plans on getting rid of her. And he's talking about scary, sadistic stuff. That's a big word for y'all, folks. Sadistic? Sadistic is a big word, bro.
There's evidence, there's items, artifacts, potential tool. I don't know exactly what he's describing, but basically, look, I'm going to read between the lines. He said that he found physical evidence to that house that there could have been greater plans as far as getting rid of her. Buzzsaw, perhaps.
Yeah, some crazy
more
shit.
tarpaulin. I feel like what he's inferring here, just in my opinion, is that he's inferring that he's seen other things at that house, evidence of that house that made him think that there was going to be more work put in to get rid of that body and to try and cover this up. Yeah. That's what I think he's saying, and he is saying from what he's seen, we don't know everything that he's seen, but from what he's seen, he no longer believes this tragic accident overdose theory, and I think that's major.
Come on, bro. Anybody with a brain can say that that's some bullshit. Okay, yeah, maybe she overdosed. But if she overdosed, somebody calls the ambulance and say my friend just overdosed, and the ambulance comes and tries to save her, and then they don't save her, she passes away, everybody's sad. There's no fucking way that she overdosed and the drugs that she overdosed on cut her body up and put her in the trunk. Somebody did that, okay? So whoever is sick enough to cut this little girl body up and put it in the Tesla trunk is sick enough to kill her, okay? If you told me that somebody, the same person that cut this little girl body up and put it in the Tesla trunk, if you told me that that same person killed her, I wouldn't be surprised, would you?
More about that. I wish I could say more, but for obvious reasons I can't. But it doesn't have to do with how she died, but maybe how they were planning on ultimately getting rid of her, and how maybe that Tesla was just a holding spot of time, and things just, you know, their timing was just off as far as getting this done.
So he is saying literally there might have been another bigger plan to get rid of her, and she might have just been put in that Tesla as a holding spot while they got things done, and before you know it,
he still ain't locked up.
Found.
But there's a few things that
were just like, bro,
will blow your mind.
He's saying the things he found in that house that the police didn't even take will blow your mind. All right. Look, I really want to know what he's talking about here. Okay. So he basically goes on to talk a little bit more about kind of any contact that he's had with David, the lease on the house, and he says a couple more things that are interesting. Then we're going to move on.
Anyone from David's team, management, legal, anybody reached out to you or your client?
You know, I know that my client's been in touch with his manager, but only for the purpose of the lease, because they did ask to terminate the lease. And I believe the other manager that technically was the owner of the red Tesla, I think was in touch with him just because they needed access to the house to get that vehicle and stuff out. Because that's another thing that they could be key in this, is that there's only one key to that house, and who had that and who had access to it and who was in it. Because we also have evidence that while David was on tour at the time between the Tesla being found and the search warrant being served, David was on tour, but somebody was in that house. And there was actually a report made, not with police, but that homeowner association has a robust private security company. And we've gotten videos from them and reports. And so who had that key is probably the same person that, you know, had access to the Tesla.
Right. So he's saying that while David went on tour, somebody had access to that property, and there's only one key to that property. And he's basically saying whoever that person who had access to the property probably had access to the Tesla. And they're probably they're in big trouble right now, because the LAPD is saying, well, body in a Tesla, who had access to this? Okay, it's in David's name, sure, but what about you? So it's really a bad look.
Do you know who that person is, and do you believe that is the person that moved the Tesla?
So I definitely know who moved that Tesla in that late July before they went on tour. I can't say who the person, and I don't mean I can't say for,
So look,
so
I already heard part of this, and a lot of people, I'm going to show you in a minute, have been really analyzing these next words. Now, some people seem to suggest, okay, the fact that he said, so I believe I definitely know who moved that Tesla before they went on tour. Now, some people do feel like, because he said before they went on tour, he's kind of slipped up and he's basically saying, yes, David. Because he's saying, so I believe I know who moved the Tesla before they went on tour, or David went on tour. Unless it was somebody else in the entourage who went on tour. But it's just like, it might be a little Freudian slip of the tongue, but he might have just sort of inadvertently revealed, like, before he went on tour, like, before my man went on tour, the guy with the tour. Not necessarily 100% sure, but I do think that's interesting.
But I don't know who exactly was in that house, because it's just a report, but there's video.
So you notice he didn't say, oh, that person who was in the house was the same person who moved the Tesla. He didn't say that. He said they went on tour. Whoever moved the Tesla, in his opinion, is somebody who went on that tour, not somebody who was left staying in the house in charge of the Tesla. He's interested in details.
You can't make a person out, but somebody was in the house. And being that there's only one key, it's like, okay, who had access at that time? So is it the same person that moved the Tesla? Was another last part of the plan about to go in motion as far as getting rid of her body?
He's inferring that whoever that person was might have been complicit. He's saying, was there the final part of the plan about to go in motion as far as getting rid of her body? What were the artifacts that were left at the house? Were these artifacts that were left in the possession of a person left at the house? I'm not going to lie. Like, it sounded like he might have left somebody in that house with a whole mess and said, hey, you're going to have to sort this out. Maybe they didn't want to.
I don't know.
Now, we heard this.
So basically, he goes on to talk about, the DA talking about the case. He didn't really say anything specific, so that's not that interesting. So he'll go on in a minute to touch on the dismemberment theory, and he's going to once again hint that there were some things in the property that maybe hinted towards them planning to chop the body up. So check this out.
I hit the wrong damn thing.
for these charges. Can you get it or not get it? Listen, a crime 100% happened here. At minimum, it's the concealment of a body, right? So we know somebody did that. Hopefully it's not, a mutilation. Hopefully those initial reports were wrong about her being dismembered. But one thing I have to say, even though I talked about how we found some things that could have meant they had a really twisted plan in place to get rid of her, it never went in motion. So
he's saying he has seen some things. He doesn't want to say what, but he has seen some things that hint towards a twisted plan being in motion to get rid of her body. I think he's talking about tools to cut up the body and get rid of the body. And he's saying that plan never went into motion.
Yeah, he's talking about something to cut it up, some acid to put it in and let it dissolve, or some crazy shit, man.
Very interesting.
So you can't charge somebody for a crime that they may have thought about doing. So, we may never know more about that.
So they're saying you can't charge someone with a crime they thought about doing if there were tools in the property that they were potentially, likely, possibly going to be used to cut up a body, but they were never used, then you can't charge them with doing that. Now, this was a really interesting interview, and I think the thing that he said about Celeste potentially having a property of her own, not too far from David, now this has been supported by another post that's been going around on Reddit, saying this is proof that David rented his first place in Hollywood while still renting a second. Was this Celeste's secret hideout? Now, this basically says, following on from the other post regarding his first rented property, why wasn't it searched? Was this where he kept Celeste whenever he went out of state touring? Did the incident actually happen at this address? It's effectively the same street 1 mile down from where she was eventually found.
Damn.
And yes, there's some property history someone's pulled up. I'm not going to show the location of the property in this video. People saying, I'm not going to lie, I'm proud of how locked in you are, man. And the guy's just saying, I'm just saying, look at the date. He got rid of it in March. Me and others have been speculating that something happened early this year, January, February, and all of a sudden the place was up for rent again in March. People are saying it's starting to add up. I remember when the OG sub was up, we would get flamed for saying she might have died in spring of this year, early 2025. But now more and more stuff is pointing to exactly that. People are saying, interesting how it went up for rent in March. He no longer needed it for Celeste. That's not July, that's March. I swear this fits my timeline, okay? And SF just said it happened at a different address in that video, so this address must be it. He was still renting it until March 2025, and I called it out before that video dropped. So the internet detectives are absolutely grinding it out right now and trying to get to the bottom of this, okay? And this is more analysis from that video. People saying now it's getting interesting. Update: the PI in David's case thinks Celeste Rivas died in early 2025, January, February, at another home that David was renting.
Because he said something about January. He said something about January or February. He got another Tesla. They said he got another Tesla in like February or March, just randomly. Like, who the fuck leases two of the same car randomly? Weird, right?
That's 1 mile down the same street she was found. He also alludes that David's friend Neo may have been the one to move the Tesla. So people are suggesting this guy Neo might have been the one who was looking after that property. People are saying, why is this guy spreading misinformation? He never said anything about the house being 1 mile away. He didn't say that the house was 1 mile away. He said towards downtown. Okay. And people have basically found this other property. Okay, people are getting flamed in the comments here, but
hey, bro, I ain't gonna deep dive into this shit because you never know. But that private investigator, that nigga knows something we don't know.